Britney Spears' dad, Jamie Spears, has finally broken his silence about the Free Britney movement that's taking social media by storm. Spoiler alert, he thinks it's baloney. Britney Spears' father, Jamie Spears, has been Britney's conservator, as in legal guardian, since 2008. Britney Spears was placed under conservatorship in 2008 after she was committed to a psychiatric ward twice. It was supposed to be temporary, but it's been in place until now. Since then, Jamie Spears has been in charge of Britney's finances, personal affairs, and pretty much her life for over a decade. Fans of Britney Spears have started a movement, the Free Britney movement, where they believe she's being held unjustly against her will and forced into a conservatorship. Conservatorships are typically for the severely mentally ill or the elderly, basically people who can't be in charge of their own lives. Fans also believe Britney is showing signs to her fans on social media posts that she wants them to come to her rescue. The Free Britney movement has been around for years, but it's especially gained traction in recent months as Britney's social media posts get stranger and the public debate around mental health is getting more heated. But here's what Jamie Spears had to say about the Free Britney movement. In an interview with Page 6, he called the movement a joke. "All these conspiracy theorists don't know anything. The world don't have a clue," Jamie said. "It's up to the court of California to decide what's best for my daughter. It's no one else's business." Now, one major point about the Free Britney movement is that Britney's family members and management benefit financially from her work. She's done a Las Vegas residency, a very successful Las Vegas residency, I might add. 3 world tours, she released countless products since the conservatorship started. So how is she able to do all this work and still be considered mentally ill? When responding to the accusation that he steals from his daughter, this is what Jamie said. "I have to report every nickel and dime spent to the court every year. How the hell would I steal something?" He added while getting emotional, "I love my daughter, I love all my kids, but this is our business, it's private." Furthermore, he is bothered by the aggressiveness of Free Britney supporters, arguing that people are being stalked and targeted with death threats. He said, "It's horrible, we don't want those kinds of fans." Jamie Spears isn't the only person close to Britney who's hit back at the Free Britney movement. Charlie Ebersol, who dated Britney for 8 months in 2015, responded to the accusations that she's a helpless pawn, denying that rumor is true, in fact said that it was further from the truth. Another insider said to the Post that although Jamie Spears isn't perfect, he really stepped up for Britney. They said, "It's not at all a conservatorship like you read about for old people. It protects her in a way people like Michael Jackson weren't protected, from themselves and from other people. She's been able to perform all this time because performing is where she's happiest. When she's left to her own devices is where the trouble starts. She does have some serious issues." Britney's attorney, however, said this. "So when Britney hit rock bottom, she hired a lawyer, Adam Streisand, who was her lawyer until a doctor said she wasn't competent enough to choose her own lawyer. So the court appointed a different one. Streisand said she understood the conservatorship, but she didn't want her father to be her conservator. He called Jamie a quote weird guy, a control freak, but he doesn't see him as a criminal mastermind who steals from Britney."
Jamie Spears has finally agreed to step down and relinquish the control that he had over his daughter for the last 13 years. This is a major milestone for the Free Britney movement. TMZ has just reported that Jamie's lawyer has filed legal documents in which he says, "There are in fact no actual grounds for suspending or removing Mr. Spears as the conservator of the estate, and it is highly debatable whether a change in conservator at this time would be in Miss Spears' best interests." However, he then changes his tone and even points blame at the Free Britney campaign by saying, "Nevertheless, even as Mr. Spears is the unremitting target of unjustified attacks, he does not believe that a public battle with his daughter over his continuing service as her conservator would be in her best interests. So, even though he must contest this unjustified petition for his removal, Mr. Spears intends to work with the court and his daughter's new attorney to prepare for an orderly transition to a new conservator." And the document continues by saying that regardless of his former title, Jamie will always be her father and will always love her unconditionally and will always look out for her best interests. He then, however, decides to take a moment to attack Lynn Spears as well. You know, the mother of this daughter that he loves so very much. He said her credibility is undermined because Britney had refused to see Lynn when she was at the mental health facility in 2019. He did, however, confirm that Lynn has had little involvement in the conservatorship, but then, he also tacked on little involvement in Britney's life for the last 13 years as well. He's weirdly acting like some sort of savior, too, for Britney, even as he departs this conservatorship. He says again in these documents that he saved Britney when she was in crisis, desperately in need of help 13 years ago, adding not only was she suffering mentally and emotionally, she was also being manipulated by predators and in financial distress. Mr. Spears came to his daughter's rescue to protect her. And Britney's lawyer Matthew Rosengard did respond to the news as well and said that they are pleased but not really surprised by it, also adding that they were disappointed in the ongoing shameful and reprehensible attacks on Miss Spears and others. He goes on to say, "We look forward to continuing our vigorous investigation into the conduct of Mr. Spears and others over the past 13 years while he reaped millions of dollars from his daughter's estate, and I look forward to taking Mr. Spears' sworn deposition in the near future. In the interim, rather than making false accusations and taking cheap shots at his own daughter, Mr. Spears should step aside immediately. In new court documents that have been released, it seems as though Britney's father tried to object to her going on vacation. He ultimately relented, but her attorney is now arguing that this very objection is just another reason of why he needs to be removed from the conservatorship. In new court papers, Britney's attorney recently exposed that her father had disapproved of her wanting to travel to Hawaii for vacation last month. He argued that even though he did change his mind, the very fact that he could so easily object just emphasized why removing him is so important for Britney's freedom. Her attorney Matthew Rosengart cited this dispute in their application that was filed to the LA County Superior Court. This move was done to set up another hearing on September 29 so the courts can hear again why Britney needs to remove him from her estate. In the filing he writes, "In short, although a 2-month wait for a hearing on the petition may not seem significant in the context of 13 years, Ms. Spears should not be forced to continue to feel traumatized, lose sleep, and suffer further. Every day matters." Later adding that while rescheduling this hearing for Britney's request to an earlier date is important, the immediate suspension of Jamie Spears would be the most effective way to remedy the situation. And if you follow Britney online, then you'll know how much she loves going to Hawaii. Recently she made a post detailing her trip and said in the caption, "Well damn, I did it again, Maui Part 2. This footage is more current though from yesterday. I'm driving the cheapest car known to mankind, but it's pretty fun. I like the sound of the ocean at night and I like hearing people laughing from my balcony. There's a togetherness here and it's endless. Here's me playing in the dirt and making angels in the sand of the ocean. More to come, more to share, more to dream, more to hope for, and many more to pray for. God bless you all. Here's to Maui." Now going back to the court filings though, this move by Rosengart is going to bring about a lot of change. Not only did he expose the control that Jamie has on small stuff like her wanting to spend her own money on vacation, but it also puts him in a hypocritical light, which is not really that great for public opinion, especially when it comes to decisions about how to spend his daughter's money. According to the court documents, counsel for Jamie has cost Britney's estate, and get ready for this number, $1,356,293 in attorney fees, and that's just from October 2020 to June 2021. Plus he also makes sure to pay himself a cool $16,000 a month, plus $2,000 a month just for office expenses. Rosengart goes on to talk about this saying, "These spendthrift ways are particularly problematic when contrasted with the stringent, absolutely microscopic control Mr. Spears has exerted over his daughter, evidently since her childhood and continuing through to today." Now with support from her mother and her medical team all endorsing the removal of Jamie Spears from the conservatorship, we could actually see something being done here. In closing, Rosengart said in his filing, "In short, for a variety of legitimate, compelling reasons in the Conservatives' best interest, the time has come for Mr. Spears' reign to end." Britney Spears' lawyer Matthew Rosengart is now claiming that her father Jamie wanted a $2 million payout in exchange for his removal from the conservatorship. Thankfully, Britney's lawyer is done seeing her have her finances drained and now he's firing back. Jamie Spears is now doing everything he can to get more money out of his daughter before finally departing from his control over her life. Rosengart has now filed a supplemental petition to have Jamie immediately removed, but said that he tried to barter his exit by asking for $2 million in payments. Not that long ago, Jamie announced in a court filing that he intended on preparing for an orderly transition for a new conservator, thus stepping down from his highly publicized role as co-conservator. In response to this new payout request, Matthew Rosengart filed a statement with the Los Angeles Superior Court and said, "Regardless of the past, Mr. Spears and his counsel are now on notice. The status quo is no longer tolerable and Britney Spears will not be extorted." In addition to that, he took more shots at Jamie and said, "Mr. Spears' blatant attempt to barter suspension and removal in exchange for approximately $2 million in payments, on top of the millions already reaped from Ms. Spears' estate by Mr. Spears and his associates, is a non-starter." He then goes on to say that the only honorable, decent, and humane course of action would be for Mr. Spears to resign now and provide all the necessary information to evaluate his accounting, and if matters cannot be resolved consensually, to try to defend his accounting as well. Despite being under direct pressure from his superstar daughter as well as the public at large, Jamie's notice of beginning the transition process was filed with resentment. With the next hearing being held on September 29th, Jamie Spears knows that this transition process is going to take months to complete, which means he still has some control over his daughter's life in that time, and this is where things get a little bit sketchy. Now that being said, Rosengart put into the recent court filings that, contrary to the powers that Mr. Spears and his counsel seek to arrogate unto themselves, they do not get to choose the time and place of Mr. Spears' departure. Those issues are governed by law, the best interest of Ms. Spears, and by this court. Rosengart even compared this to a hostage situation, saying that this is not about him, it is about the best interest of his daughter, which as a matter of law mandates his removal. Putting aside the legal issues that require his immediate removal, if he truly loved his daughter, he would resign today because it would be the correct and at least decent thing to do. But let's not get it twisted. Just because Jamie was denied a $2 million payout doesn't mean that he's going to be giving up control. Judge Penny has rejected any attempt to legally remove him from the conservatorship, and while Jamie is is still in control of his daughter's financial and career decisions, Jody Montgomery remains in charge of her personal and medical affairs. So all of that talk about him stepping down was simply lip service to the Free Britney crowd online, hoping that this would calm them down, but we all see right through what's happening here and it's not okay. In recent weeks, Rosengard suggested that forensic CPA Jason Rubin replace Jamie in the conservatorship, but that still means that all these people believe Britney needs to be controlled by someone. It's fine for her to have an accountant or someone to manage her career, but under the guise of a conservatorship, these people have far too much control over her life and her decisions. So far, Jamie Spears' lawyers have yet to respond to their payout being declined, but if they do, we'll be sure to let you know. Jamie Spears has reportedly just filed a petition to end Britney's conservatorship, but while her lawyer is calling it a legal victory, he is still concerned that Jamie is trying to avoid any accountability. Previously, Britney wanted Jamie charged for what he did to her throughout this conservatorship, so while we talk about the good news, let's take it all with a grain of salt. After weeks upon weeks of refusing the multiple requests to immediately resign from his role as co-conservator, Jamie Spears is finally filing a petition to end the conservatorship. Britney's lawyer Matthew Rosengard said in a statement to Variety correspondent Elizabeth Wagmeister, "This filing represents another legal victory for Britney Spears, a massive one, as well as vindication for Ms. Spears." He continues by saying, "It appears that Mr. Spears believes he can try to avoid accountability and justice, including sitting for a sworn deposition and answering other discovery under oath. But as we assess his filing, which was inappropriately sent to the media before it was served on counsel, we will also continue to explore all options." So not only was it inappropriately sent to the media, but Rosengard also believes that this is Jamie's way of avoiding any accountability for his actions. If you recall back in July during the hearing where the judge allowed for Britney to select her own lawyer, she reiterated that she believes her father should be charged in this case. As soon as Rosengard was selected by Ms. Spears, he immediately started to make formal requests for Jamie's immediate removal. However, in addition to that, we still had Jody Montgomery remaining in place as co-conservator. Previously, when announcing that he would be stepping down, Jamie's lawyer said, "Mr. Spears continues to serve dutifully and he should not be suspended or removed, and certainly not based on false allegations. Mr. Spears is willing to step down when the time is right, but the transition needs to be orderly and include a resolution of matters pending before the court. Judge Brenda Penny, who has been overseeing this case, will still need to approve the move, but it certainly seems like the grounds for a conservatorship may no longer exist if Jamie himself is filing to end it." This did not come without a fight though. As you know if you've been following this case with us, Jamie not only asked for $2 million in payouts towards the end of it, but he has also been receiving $16,000 a month just to manage his daughter's affairs while she was touring. According to NBC, the filing by Jamie also defended his work as Britney's conservator and said, "The conservatorship has helped Ms. Spears get through a major life crisis, rehabilitate and advance her career, and put her finances and her affairs in order. But recently things have changed." He also stated that his legal team do not believe Britney will require any further psychological assessment, which will be a huge relief to her after she publicly objected to another evaluation in that first testimony. Jamie also acknowledged that because Britney was granted by the court to choose her own lawyer, this should mean that she has the capacity to handle her own life. Jamie also addressed her complaints of having every aspect of her life dictated to her and said she wants to control the money she has made from her career and spend it without supervision or oversight. She wants to be able to get married and have a baby if she so chooses. In short, she wants to live her life as she chooses without the constraints of a conservator or court proceeding. Jamie also noted in the filing that his daughter is driving again and wanted more control over her therapist sessions. Now, what also blew me away a bit here was that he called on Jody Montgomery to step down as well. As I mentioned earlier, Jody currently serves as Britney's personal conservator while he managed her finances. However, Rosengard is not going to let him slip by that easily. In his filings last week, Rosengard stated, "Mr. Spears has no right to condition his departure on improper and extortionate demands for payment or blanket immunity. Instead, the only honorable, decent, and humane course of action is for Mr. Spears to resign now, provide all necessary information to evaluate his accounting, and if matters cannot be resolved consensually, to try to defend his accounting." That term blanket immunity is really going to be the next point of contention for this case, and it echoes Rosengard's newest assertions that Jamie is trying to end this thing quickly so that he can avoid any charges. The next hearing for this case is currently scheduled for September 29th, and at this hearing the judge will be expected to make a ruling on Jamie's removal, but it is still unclear if this new petition to end the conservatorship will be discussed at that time.
Now that Britney Spears is trying to get her father Jamie off of her conservatorship, lawyers are looking more into things that Jamie did in his past, and they have uncovered that Jamie was stealing millions from Britney over the years. New documents have exposed that Jamie Spears allegedly took millions of dollars from his daughter Britney during the course of the conservatorship. Apparently this was in the form of unwarranted commissions from Britney's estate. This is all coming out now that Britney is asking the courts for the immediate removal of her father as her conservator. Then after this she wants to end the conservatorship completely.
immediately. In the wake of all the drama surrounding the conservatorship and the abuse of power on the part of her father, Jamie revealed that he was stepping down as Britney's financial conservator, although he said he won't be doing this immediately and we don't really have a timeline as of now. The next hearing relating to Jamie's role as conservator is on September 29th, where a judge is making a ruling on his fate in charge. Jamie has been in charge of Britney's estate, finances, and much of her personal life since a court-ordered conservatorship was established in 2008. And even though Jamie is now saying he intends to step down as financial conservator, Britney's lawyers Matthew Rosengart said this move by Jamie might just be to cover his tracks and quote avoid accountability and justice for what he's done to Britney. Apparently a clause of Jamie's termination as conservator will be to give him blanket immunity from whatever misuse they find, but Rosengart does not want to abide by that. Then Rosengart described just some of the mismanagement and theft that they have discovered. He said, quote, "Although our investigation is ongoing and further investigation is warranted, Mr. Spears' mismanagement of Mrs. Spears' estate is evident and ongoing. He took unwarranted commissions from his daughter's work, totaling millions of dollars. He takes a salary larger than his daughter's." He even alleged that Jamie paid himself for a quote unused office space as a way to get more money from Britney's estate. These allegations come after Britney and her team exposed that Jamie had been paying himself $16,000 a month since 2009 through Britney's estate. The most recent statement that Britney's lawyers have made on this matter is that, quote, "Ms. Spears will seek appointment of a temporary short-term conservator to replace Mr. Spears until the conservatorship is completely and inevitably terminated this fall. In the meantime, if Mr. Spears will not resign now, Ms. Spears requests that at the September 29th hearing, the court suspend Mr. Spears immediately and formally appoint his temporary successor." So thankfully progress is being made and the truth is finally coming to light after all these years. And I just hope that we see justice being served, and that her father gets sued or even potentially jail time depending on what they discover.